Welcome to Threads of Enlightenment, a podcast devoted to helping you overcome challenges in your life that prevent you from becoming the best version of yourself. Each episode features interviews with people from all walks of life about their journey of self-development and the principles they utilize to overcome their fears to achieve their desired outcome. Ready to be enlightened? Here's your host, Ken Primus.
You got it.
Welcome to another episode of Threads of Enlightenment. As usual, guys, I have an opportunity to welcome our guests because in my mind, they're coming with a couple of things I deem very expensive because I've learned the value of them. First time, 24 hours has been offered to every man and woman on this planet, and what we do with that 24 hours will tell me a lot about you. The other is the journey. The journey is a powerful created us. It has given to us certain things. It's deposited in each and every one of our being. And we want to honor Ken for coming and sharing and allowing us access to that information being wisdom, knowledge, insights, and so forth, that it can help you and I to become better human spirits while we're here on this planet. Ken, thank you so much for coming to Threads of Enlightenment.
Thanks, Ken. Appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
It is an honor, man. As I mentioned to you that I love throwing this question to everyone that shows up. I have a lot of fun with it. And that is basically speaking to that latter part of the journey that I talked about. And my question to you is, how do you serve mankind?
Well, I think as with anybody that has been experienced and has been blessed and, has been fortunate and lucky and, humbled and grateful and all those kinds of things, I think when you have a path that works, when you find something in life that works, it's incumbent upon you to pass that gift along. So for me, whether I'm coaching a young person or a person that's in midlife that, doesn't really like where they've landed and wants to start over, or even companies to help their people run better and more efficient companies, I think it's just a whole lot of fun to say, look, I've stumbled across a couple of cool things that really work well. I want to give those to you because success by yourself is no fun. I mean, getting to the top of the mountain is great, but if you're not hoisting someone up behind you to help shorten their learning curve, then, what's it all for?
I absolutely agree. I think the entrance of our journey causes us to become that servant. It gives us knowledge. It gives us some data that the processes that we have developed as our journey goes through, that we are able to reach forward and to hold that. I can't even imagine, Ken, that someone would hold on to something like that and die with it. That would be like stealing to a degree that is just absolutely madness to even think about, So I hope there's no one out there like that. But one of our customs, Ken, is to go back. I call it the beginnings of our beginnings because it's there that we learn a couple of things. And the first location that we visit as people on this planet is the family. In this unit, we have brothers, sisters, mom and dad, and so forth. But at that location, Ken, we're going to learn a couple of things, communication skills. We're going to learn about our beliefs, forming our type of belief that we're going to have. We're going to learn about patterns of behavior right here as well. We're going to start learning about mindset and perception. We build up our perception right there, which will then guide us to make decisions in our life. What was your family unit like?
So I have 4 brothers and great parents, mother and father. And we grew up in a very small house in Amherst, Ohio. And my father was a Marine, so he kind of ran it like a barracks, which was great most of the time until you got out of line. And then you learned what Marine life was like. But I think the cool thing was he worked very hard. I mean, he was working in a produce department at a grocery store making, 12 or 13,000 a year trying to feed 5 growing boys, which is impossible to do. But I think the cool thing was, he was able to say, look, I can give you a roof over your head. I can give you clothing and shelter. I can give you food. I can give you basic recreation as much as we can afford to do. If there's something beyond that you wish for or want, then you have to find a way to go out and get it. And I think that built a heck of a lot of independence amongst all of us because back then aluminum baseball bats just came out, and I was like, wow, I'd really like to have one of those. And very quickly I figured out that I could trade 20 hours of labor at $2 an hour to go get my aluminum baseball bat. And I just thought that was amazing. And the fact is it just built independence in all of us. And we relied upon each other just for what brothers do. But beyond that, we all went out and got it. We saw how hard my father worked. And it was a great lesson for us to say, don't wait on life to happen to you. You better happen to life. And that's the way it's going to be.
Man, when in a retrospect of life and as adults, we are now adults and so forth, we can see the value of what your dad just taught you guys and how powerful that is to gain that independentness, if you will, because to have that, when we say the word independent, there's a lot of things that comes with that, a lot of principles and walks with that. There's a mindset when you become independent. There's as you said, you began to tap into becoming more creative in obtaining what you want. So this word independent is a rich, loaded word, if you will. There's so much stuff in there. As you are independent and your family, your brothers and so forth, and you got your baseball bat and you're moving through life as you're growing up, how did that independence, and we saw some of it, as you mentioned, Ken, that it caused you to get out there and began to take life? And you're seeing all of that with your brothers and stuff like that. How did that begin to form you?
Well, I think what you begin to realize is, in my mind, most unhappy people feel like they don't have a sense of control over their destiny, over their outlook. And that's what I teach now. I mean, if most of what I do is teach visualization and control. And I think what people don't quite get is the more we get into technology, the more dependent we become on technology, but we also, the more reactive we become in our lifetime. We see a stimulus, so we react to it. You know, we see the information or the weather or whatever it might be, and we react to that thing rather than taking the time to proact. And so for me, it seems like the control factor was everything. I mean, I wanted to control my input in whatever it was. I wanted to control my output then from that and the quality of that output. I wanted to control my day, my time, and my schedule, and I wanted to control my financial gain. So I didn't want to be dependent on anyone else to affect any one of those things. And I think that's the biggest thing that I've learned throughout writing the book and the course and all the TV that I've done and everything. The biggest thing I've learned is people don't really feel in control. And when they feel out of control, that's when some of those conversations happen, like the one you had at the so it just seems to me that when someone says, "Wow, I can get what I want for myself with this life," once they utilize the visionary side of their brain, which isn't trained in any school, you can't really learn it from a class. You can't pay for that. It's already downloaded into your mind. You just have to access it. Once you learn the visual side of your brain and how to use it, it opens up a whole lot of possibilities in this world.
Yeah, I always tell people, put your kids in the arts and sports. If they have an inclination towards the arts, you put them there, support them, go after them because they access the imagination. One of the most powerful things when you put them in sports, they're now going to train, they develop certain mindsets in sports because in sports, you push past limitations. And that is one of the things in sports because you will constantly run up against a limitation here, a limitation there, too slow, too fast, whatever. Limitations exist. And the mindset of those that are in sport is to push past that. The imagination, you are in arts, you are taking this muscle and just spreading it out because it will become useful. And I tell people, everything we do in life is not tossed away. It will become useful, especially when you're on your journey of self-development. And I've been listening to your story and reading about you for a week, I think now, a week and a half now, Ken. And I know the road that you took. But when you came to college and heading into quote unquote work, that bridge, that crossroad as they talk about, why did you pick where you pick and what was your reasoning behind picking your making the decision to take that path versus the other school?
Well, I always thought, what would give me the best lived experience over the next 4-year period of time? I mean, I had the option of going to a university and relearning everything I had already learned the first 2 years of the university and then getting to the specialty the second 2 years. And I thought to myself, well, what's the point of it? I want to go get a business degree, but what's the point of that? Well, because I want to be good at business. So what's the point of that? Well, I want to be able to run my own company. Okay, what does that look like? And when you keep asking yourself those questions, you get closer and closer to what it is you're really after. So for me, I was offered the opportunity to go out at 18 years of age and travel to Cincinnati and Columbus and Pittsburgh and in these different areas, Chicago, and open up businesses from scratch on other people's dimes. In other words, I was able to open franchises for our company for new franchisee owners that didn't have a clue what they were doing, and I had to go out and set the stage for them to take over. I would start from scratch. I would set it up for 6 months, and then they would take over and I would move on. So I thought to myself, wouldn't that be more valuable because I'm getting paid handsomely to do it versus paying a college to do it?
Yeah.
Wouldn't that be a better lived life experience? That was the answer. And I came out a very, very talented business person because, here I am 18 years old. I'm probably 5'8", 140 pounds, and I'm having to go up against union plumbers in Chicago that are twice my size and think they know more than I did. So it was an interesting dynamic, but it was one that I took full on because once again, I was in control of the outcome. And so you just have to trust yourself that you have what it takes to do it. And we all do. I've said this many times, Ken, we all possess the characteristics of an entrepreneur. Every one of us does. Things like persistence and resilience and faith and courage and vision and initiative and humility and generosity. We all have all those characteristics. We just need a reason for them to come out. And my reason was, well, why am I doing it? What if to look like? And so once you get that picture very clearly in your head, it becomes kind of a self-fulfilling prophecy if you just walk the walk.
Yeah, I think that's just powerful story right there. Ken, I think I call it the assignment. I think we're called to find and locate our assignment. And society and all the other programs program you and I to get a job. But we can lose that job based on whatever the company says, whoever, whatever. But I think when you find your assignment is a different story, because I believe that is the North Star that causes you to do what you do and how you do it. And within that framework of locating your assignment is where all of your sustenance is there and your provision and all the different things versus the work that people tell us. And I use the example when Jesus showed up on his beach while these are fishermen. They were doing their job, fishing. And he comes to them and says, hey, guys, follow me and I'll make you fishers of men. And what in the world is that, number one? But it was something in it, Ken, that caused them to drop everything that they were doing and follow him. So it tells me then that your job, even though that's their profession, fishermen, will never satisfy you. You got to find your assignment. And so you found yours at an early age, if you will. And as one, when you look into the madness, because you got to go to four-year degree. And then when you come out, they ask you, when you apply for the job, you got no experience. You're still spinning in the wind with that degree. So your approach is for you was probably the most practical thing because you were able to control, you understand your dad introduced you to powerful value early on in life, and you took that and ran with it, and you're able now to go and travel and all of those things. When you were up against all of the guys, and you said something really powerful, is that you got to know yourself. You got to know that all of these gifts are sitting inside of you, and it's all, as Ken said, you have to access all of it. And so it's sitting and residing in you. Know yourself, know you, who you are. So when you speak, there's a certain authority that you will speak, and people will recognize that authority because you are carrying it with a certain power. Christianity will call that the anointing, that juice, if you will, that comes behind your words. As you are traveling and speaking to the big boys in Chicago and all the different things, and this young man, how is that going on with Ken? How did he handle himself as he's out there? Again, he has the knowledge. He's the one that's coming and do, as he said. How did you manage when you got there, Ken, with all of these other pushback, if you will, coming towards you?
Well, that's a great question. So, I've used this analogy before. If I came and dumped 1,000-piece puzzle on your desk right now and asked you to put it together, you would probably say, okay, what is it? And I would say, well, I'm not telling you.
Yeah.
Where's the puzzle box? Because that's what I need to look at. Well, no, I'm taking that away. You're not going to see that. You would have a very difficult time putting that puzzle together. I mean, you might get the edges, right? Because that's kind of free for everybody.
Yeah.
But I've been told that to build a 1,000-piece puzzle, you look at that puzzle box between 50 and 100,000 times. Think about that. So you're looking at what it looks like before you build it. You know what the end game is before you start. You see the vision before you lift one piece of the puzzle. And so I just kept saying to myself, well, I know what the home office looks like. I know I know the picture, I know the vision for replicating that. So I could stand with a very aggressive big guy who said he knew what he knew. And I could say, well, this is what I need it to look like. Okay. However
Yeah.
that happens is fine. You can make that decision, but I need it to end. And the end of the day, I need it to look like this.
Yeah.
And so I just carried that confidence through because I've always said, and I just said this before, if you ask enough questions, I learned this a long time ago. I've never built a skyscraper before, but if I had, let's see, I'd probably need to find some land. Okay, I never built a skyscraper before, but if I had, I'd probably need to find some land and make some plans, building
Yeah.
plans. Okay, I've never built a skyscraper before, but if I did, I'd probably need some land and some building plans, and then I'd have to hire a contractor. And if you keep doing that over and over again, pretty soon you will have built the skyscraper. You just have to know that if I envision what the end of it is, I can keep layering, the next step on top of the next step. So, partially out of fear, I just said, well, sir, I know what it's supposed to look like. So please make it look like this, however you want to do it. And then
Yeah.
it worked out that way.
I tell people that's how the creator operates, though. Ken, he operates from the finished plan, and he says, "Hey, let's make man in our image," and then he has a finished plan, and then he goes and bring it to pass and began to instrument whatever plans he needs to do in order. And then after he's finished with this thing called the earth and our dimension, he says, "Hey, this is yours, man. Take care of it." But he started from he already had a plan set up. He knew exactly what he was doing, and he began to implement it. And that's exactly the model that you're following. As you're growing up, you're making all this stuff happen. And as it begins to happen and so forth, with these new stores put in place and things like that, what were some of those common threads that you began to notice with individuals as you're moving from a new place to a new place to a new place? There are always the common threads. What did you begin to notice because you're looking at human behavior? It may be in different locations, but you began to notice a few things. What were those things that you began to witness as you're traveling, this young man, opening stores, getting it up and running and moving it?
think it, I think it would be that people were apprehensive, they were anxious, you know, they were fearful, they
Mhm.
weren't confident. And I think what that does is it's the reason most people would buy a franchise, I guess, Ken, because the
Yeah,
path has been walked before them. When you buy a McDonald's franchise or a Burger King or whatever, you're buying the fact that there's a lot of history, a lot of recognition, a lot of knowledge, and a lot of know-how and all that kind of thing. And I think that's why some of these gentlemen opened these franchises because they wanted to walk a path that had been walked before.
yeah,
So I almost felt like a shepherd where I was kind
yeah,
of like guiding them along and making them more confident every single day. And when things started to happen for them and you slowly hand off these processes to them and they start to do them on their own, almost like riding a bike and then letting go of
yeah.
the bike, you can see the confidence just building in them to the point where yeah, now it's a viable thing. And then at some point I go, okay, my work is done here. I can move on to the next one. So yeah, that was pretty much the common thread.
That is awesome to be able to be a part of something like that from scratch to the handoff, if you will. But also that handoff represents the growth of that individual that is before you and the individual that purchased that franchise. And you have an opportunity to witness personal development in the sense when most of them come in a little sheepish, if you will, and then they're able to stand tall and become that leader, that entrepreneur. What you had mentioned some of the things that you noticed. What were some of the pitfalls that you were trying to make them aware that is out there? And again, you have this history that is behind you and you come with the franchise and they've developed and they know all those pitfalls and they'll be able to educate that. What were some of those things that most of them, I have a couple of friends that started franchises and stuff like that. Most of those things that cause or initiate the franchise demise and fall leads to attitude. It's amazing. So talk to me, Ken, how what were some of the alarms that you sounded for them, the advice, the direction? And, you have those different personalities. Some will listen, and then you have those others that will buck, and then
Yeah.
you have to deal with those. So talk to us about that, those two type personalities, if you will, and what you saw in there that made the difference.
Well, the two types of personalities were pretty clear. There were some who thought the franchise would run on its own because
Yeah.
that's why they bought a franchise. So they would just open it up and just watch it work. So that was a downfall. And I solved that the same way that I helped the person who recognized they would have to get involved and work it hard. So there was the two different people. Some knew they were going to have to work it, and some
Yeah.
thought they could sit by and watch it. But the same answer was true for both of them, because as you have business goals, you need to get to so much in revenue and so much in backlog, and then you need to buy another vehicle so you can do more work and install more work and that kind of thing, and you grow that way. You also have a personal growth path that you need to have very clearly visualized, because there's a reason you start your own business. It's not to have it run you, it's so you can run it. And I
Yeah.
said before, we don't live to work. We work so that we can live. Well, I constantly had to remind people, what's your live? What does
Yeah.
that mean to me? Like, when you do all this and you work all this hard, long hours or whatever, what's the reward and the benefit to you for doing this? Why are you doing it? And so that kind of cured both of those, polar opposite individuals, because, this sounds materialistic, but it's really not. You can buy a fancy car, you can buy a boat, you can belong to a golf club, you can have access to travel and all these other kinds of things. But if you're not creating memories with those items, then it doesn't mean much. I mean, a car just sits there unless you create a memory with it. You can have a convertible sitting in your garage getting dusty, or you can take your wife and your kids to the ice cream store on Sunday night and create a memory with it, right? So that was my thing, was, why are you doing it? What's in it for you? What's your life going to look like from a religious, I shouldn't say religious, but a spiritual standpoint, a generosity, a give back, a charity moment,
Mhm.
your free time, your comfort, peace, and freedom, like I talk about in Blue Collar Cash, what your homestead's going to look like, what your transportation is going to look like. Draw your whole vision, draw your life out, because that's the puzzle I was talking about earlier.
Yeah.
If you see all these things and you have the picture, you can stare at it 50 or 100,000 times, then those things will begin to manifest themselves in your life through just reticular activating systems. But that will happen only if you start the process, and that will overcome a lot of the pitfalls and the challenges that you have in business, because you're working toward a greater thing.
I love it, man. I love the approach, as you said, which will solve both. And that is it. Sometimes people just need to, as I said, attitude plays a big role in certain things, and creating that vision, as you mentioned on the onset of our conversation, that one of the things that you get a chance to do and you love to do right now is basically teach people about their visions and their imagination and so forth. As you're moving through life and you're dealing with things and you're attaining the things, as you said, what was your memories? What was the things that began to drive you as you began to do these things and the years are clocking in? Did you lose your direction, if you will? Did it begin to weigh on you, get bored? How was Ken managing as he's doing this over and over and he's seeing the results, getting all his different accolades as he's moving through life? What was that doing to your mindset and your behavior, all of those things, your belief as you're getting past, further down the road of life, if you will?
Well, I think the best part for me was it made you into a very confident person,
Yeah.
because like, for example, when you're anticipating the next thing that comes into your life, you're anticipating it like you do a vacation. Okay, we all remember growing up, man, if we could go on spring break to Florida, and get out of Ohio and just for a week, wouldn't that be cool? And we always imagined our feet in the sand, and the sun on our face, and the breeze, and the ocean, and the lounge chair, and the music, and the copper tone number 8 sunscreen, and the way it smelled. And, we just remember we anticipated that so vividly
Yeah.
that I use that same process to anticipate everything in my life. I try to get vivid in every part of my life. And so you become a really confident person and you enjoy the journey because you're constantly anticipating one thing or another. Some things are 6 months away, some things are 6 days away, some things are 16 years away, but you're anticipating all these things concurrently. So for me, that felt so good that I couldn't wait to share that process with others. So then I started sharing that even in coaching. And I have 200 employees here, so there's lots of stories.
Yeah.
I wanted to share that pathway, that timed pathway process with as many people as I could. And we do. That's part of our DNA here now. So it's just fun to watch a whole group of people who are all anticipating something come into their life and know that they're kind of working for themselves first and for me and this company second, which is cool because I love selfish people. And I don't mean selfish at the detriment of others. I mean people who are working on self.
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
and it's just cool to watch people grow and become anticipatory and become confident and you know and walk the walk. So it's just a fun thing to see.
Yeah. I know one of the way back when I started my journey, right, in my corporate America days, I used to listen to Tony Robbins, and I know Tony had write some things about you, but I remember utilizing that practice that he had talked about, bringing the colors, putting colors to it versus the black and white, putting the distance between it and all the different things when I was a young buck coming up in the corporate America arena and trying to find my way and starting my journey. And he was one of the guys that I would listen to on my way into work in my car. So I learned a lot from Tony and his teaching, NLP and all of those things. I went to class and all of learn those things. And so as you are moving through your life and you're doing all of these things, Ken, how did it lead to the book that the blue collar? What transpired to, and it's usually a series of things that leads us to it, but then there's always that final nail in the coffin, as they say, that says, yeah, this needs to be done. How did that come about?
Well, you know, when you're trying to run a company with 200 people, you're hiring a lot of people, you're hearing a lot of stories. You become almost an involuntary life coach. And, you know, I have no college, I have no training, I have no letters after my name. Okay.
Yeah.
So you become an involuntary life coach and you begin to love it. And then what happens is you get hit and you get smacked across the face. And my daughter had cancer when she was 12. And that was a very scary 5 years for her and for her mother and I. And going through all that, you know, you're in oncology rooms and doctors' offices, and you're in radiology rooms and ultrasounds, and you're doing all these things. So you have a lot of time to sit and think, okay, about what life is really all about and how you should guide your child who's fighting for his or her life. So what happened is I started writing my thoughts mentally. I started writing letters in my head to her about what should she be chasing in life. And the words comfort, peace, and freedom just kept showing up. I could not get rid of these words, Ken. I would see them places individually and in a group. I just couldn't not see these words. So I knew that that was a focus of something in my life. And I could only envision a triangle, and each point was a different word, as if they were dependent upon each other. So I started writing thoughts and then writing down thoughts. And then I started writing, you know, thoughts about friends of mine who were blue collar entrepreneurs who very successful and overcame the most horrific experiences in life to become successful people, things that would have, you know, grounded most people, but these guys made it through. And so the more stories I wrote, the more I started filling up legal pads. I had 12 legal pads full of words. And my wife said, you know, you might have a book there. You might need to get this message beyond the four walls of your building. And Nicole is fine now. She just had our first granddaughter, and she's doing great.
Beautiful.
But that, you know, that kind of puts things in perspective for you. So I had all these words, and I literally Googled an editor in New York, and he had a whole stable full of ghostwriters to help me organize my thoughts. And then, I went from there. They loved the idea. They found me an agent, and then they found me a publisher, and there was a bidding war from publishing houses for the book. And pretty soon it was a bestseller. So I had no intention of saying, today I'm going to write a book. It just kind of morphed its way into that. So maybe somehow God was trying to speak through me to say, this is how you're going to help other people. I don't know, but I'm open to all of it. That's for sure.
I'm sure that's pretty much it, because you can't have that phrase being there all day long and not have a purpose behind it, if you will.
Right.
And as I said, when your assignment is that thing when God says, this is where I'm leading you. And usually, and I tell people, usually it will come from when you're dealing with something dark, when there's a dark period in your life. And in that space right there, there's lots of clarity. Why is that, Ken? Because we get an opportunity to slow down, because we are on this wheel that we're just running, and you get up and life becomes a default program, if you will. You up your coffee, you drink your car, and we're doing that, and then the interactions and so forth. But the majority of it is a default process. But when that dark period comes, we are able to sit down, and that's when we are able to have a conversation that is penetrating all of the madness. What is the reality of things? What is real? What is true? What are these things? And as you said, you're putting all of that information to offer that to your daughter. And as that clarity happened at that point in time, talk to us about some of those stories within the books, some of those principles that you find that, and guys, we're going to put together links and all those things so you can get the books, man. And you know how I feel about books, so make sure you get those books and offer it as gifts to people. What were some of those principles that you wanted to make your daughter aware of as you were in your situation? What were some of those stories from talking to other friends? What did you notice in that package that are governed within the pages and the walls of that book?
Well, first off, I would say this, and this is somewhat controversial sometimes, but I'm not so concerned what you do for a living as I am what you do with what you do for a living. So whatever you choose to do for a living, use it to your benefit and use it to the benefit of others. Don't waste the resources that you create or that you build or the gift that God has given you. There's no doubt. Don't waste that. And also begin with what you want your life to look like. I've said this before earlier today. And by the way, thank you for putting it the way you did just now. You're slowing down when you have a challenge. Okay. Because I've been on 311 podcasts and you're the first person that's put it that way. So you must have been sent to tell me that today. So thank you very much for putting it that way. I'm grateful to you for that because it's true. But I think the process is, you and only you. Like, I'm sure that I could not guess, Ken, your favorite color, or I couldn't guess your favorite vacation spot, or your favorite food, or your favorite anything, your favorite transportation, or your favorite the way you live and what type of house you might want. Or I couldn't guess any of that, but you know that. And neither could anybody else, but you know that. So if you and only you know all the things that would make you feel like, wow, if I could live like that, that would really be cool. And then draw that picture out, because it's all different for every one of us. Then why aren't you trusting yourself to take the steps necessary to go get those things? Why are we listening to societal norms and societal expectations and listening to the herd mentality? We know individually what would make us feel, wow, if I could live like that, that'd be great. Why are we not trusting that and following that? I think living proactively and not reacting to everything. And like you said, getting off that hamster wheel and quieting ourselves to give ourselves the space and the mindset and the freedom to go. So that's what spontaneity is. So that's what, go forward looks like. So that's what imagination could be. And maybe I'm going to drop the word hope and wish and dream and convert all those words to timed pathway, because hopes and wishes and dreams remain just that without action. And so that's why we drop those words and we change them to timed pathway, because there's a specific actionable thing that. So, I mean, I know I've said a lot there, but I think that's pretty much the consummation of that message, I guess.
Yeah, and I always encourage people to go back. This is a podcast. Just go back and listen all over again. I think people live the circular life, as I call it, because they haven't really truly made a decision. They are comfortable. They have surrendered to the program. And as you said, everything starts with that imagination first. Let us create man in our image. Where did that come from? It came from his imagination. And he just verbalized what he had in his imagination. Let's create so I need this man. Okay. And then he goes, I need a place to put him. I need him to have this and this and this. And that's exactly, I tell people all the time, that's exactly how you create your world. Exactly just like that. And just like you said, you have this imagination. Again, this is you. You are the creator. You then now look back and put back, how can I get to that? And you have to get off that wheel, the program, and become proactive and begin to acquire the knowledge, the necessary steps. And I tell people when one makes the decision and decide, and I think, Ken, what I've learned, it seems that they have made that decision with the inner man, the subconscious being, as they would say in psychology, and the soul of the man. When that individual say, yes, this is what I want, I think there's a synchronicity of pulling things to that individual to cause him or her to now implement the desired outcome, put together the plan, if you will, to make that a reality, because it's a reality inside here first. And then you go and bring it out. Because if it's a reality in here, Ken, you can truly imagine it in the bright colors and see it. And then you put the plan in order. And I'm telling them, I tell people, the limitation is based on you and I. Jesus said, all things are possible to the man who believes, or the believing man. So find the data and go and get it done. And you'd be amazed. As Ken said, he gave you the direction. Oh, how am I going to build a skyscraper? Oh, I need land. And you have to do the things. You have to put it in, man, put in the work. But you can't be lazy and acquire your dreams. There's no way. You have to become proactive and get it done. You had the war on the book. The book is published. It's a bestseller. And you had these giants that had come and talked to, mentioned about the importance of your process, the way you provide and think of things. How did that obedience to that little phrase that you had in there and the slow time, that obedience to putting that together, doing the work and creating the book, how did that affect your life? And how did it change you?
I guess the first part was there was an affirmation that I was onto something, because I had so many people that, I had 3 readers, which was really interesting. There was the 17 to 25-year-old reader who wanted to start out in life, and they got a lot of good guidance from the book. And they were like, okay,
Yeah.
good. I've got a plan now. I'm not so process oriented as I am eventuality oriented. Okay. It's
Yeah.
not a if then life. I'm going to start with the then and work backwards to today. So that was a really cool thing. The other one was the reader that, they were in their 40s and they were maybe a carpenter assistant through college, and then they got their degree that they didn't want, and now they're selling medical supplies in some cubicle on the 15th floor of some building, and they're miserable. So
Yeah.
they dropped that to go back and being a carpenter, and now they're free and happy and they love it. So affirmation there. The third reader was a shock to me, because companies started buying the books in bulk and handing them out to their people, and then they would have book clubs about it, because
Yes.
they used the book to build intrapreneurial spirit within the entrepreneurial framework. People that ran their division like they owned it, and
Yeah.
that was really cool. So that was a neat reader as well. So there was basically 3 readers that came out of it. But I just wanted to see if the things that I had been doing here within these 4 walls would be applicable in other sectors, other places. I've given speeches from it. I've been on Fox News, Fox and Friends. I've been on a lot of different shows. I've written articles in Forbes and USA Today and all that stuff. And people accept it, and like, you know what, you're right. Why are we blowing with the wind here when we can direct that power of the wind to move us forward, instead of just let it randomize us all over this earth? And so the affirmation of that was pretty cool. And it strengthens it in my family and in my kids and in my granddaughter now, and living an effective life. Yeah, it's going to be a fun journey. That's for sure.
Yeah. Obedience is always better than sacrifice. It says that. Ken's book title is Blue Collar Cash. Guys, Ken, you just said something I've been advocating for years with my listeners. Buy the book. Get several of your friends to buy the book. Create a small little book club. Once you read the chapter, take it a chapter per week or however you decide as this group. Then get together, and you're having how many members in this group? talking about what you just read, you will come out with a much more robust understanding of what you read, number one. And as a group, you will become so much more effective as individuals and as groups. You will change each other's life, and who knows what will come out of that. Here, Ken talked about corporations doing this. I am telling you guys, I just wish they would listen sometime. I hope that I'm out there and enough of them because I've been saying these things for about over 2 years to create these small groups, buy the books, several of them, all of each one of you buy a book, and then you sit down and read and meet and talk instead of wasting time getting drunk and whatever. Change your life trajectory, your family, everyone by doing this. I'm telling you guys, I've seen it personally and I know what I'm talking about. And so, Ken, I want you to talk to me about one of those stories that, and you have hundreds of them. You have 200 employees. And I mean, you've been doing this thing for a long time. And so you have stories. Pull one out of that comes to your mind that we talked about, that conversation when someone comes and they're all over the place. And from the conversation series of them, you are able to unhook them from that old perspective that they've been hanging on to for dear life for 10, 30 years, whatever, and you're able to get them to release that finger from it, if you will. There's a picture of just holding on to that thing, and you get them to slowly start releasing the finger to give that leap of faith. And that leap of faith is basically allowing themselves to switch over to the new perspective. Bring one of those stories that you're able to do that to an individual and which was able to change their life.
Well, there were my very first employee. His name is Tim. He was 21 years old, came to me, and he had a young baby, and his wife was having medical issues. And he just resigned himself that he was going to be in debt forever and live a very, uninteresting life. I mean, he just thought that, I guess this is it for me. I'm just going to dig ditches the rest of my life. And that's where it's at. And we are a family of ditch diggers here, all of us. And I say that because I was one. I started when I was 15 and I'm still running a ditch digging company to this very day. But he couldn't see beyond Friday and his stack of bills that he knew were on his desk when he got home in his apartment. He couldn't see beyond that. And so, he walked the earth just kind of like, well, I guess this is just my destiny. So, at one point the bills got to be too big, the medical bills piled up, and he's like, I need to take on a part-time job in order to affect change in my life. And I sat him down and I said, well, stop, let's just stop for a minute. Let's get quiet. Let's get into a room, just you and me, and let's figure out what you want out of life, Tim. Let's figure out how you want to make this happen and how you can control the outcome of that. Well, he drew, his house and his kids, and he drew his dog, and he drew his new pickup truck, and he drew, being in the backyard, having family time, like campfires and picnics. And he drew all these things. And, we just took that like a puzzle box and we started breaking it up into little tiny pieces that were all achievable. And man, you should have seen the sea change in this guy. All of a sudden there was a purpose, there was a direction, there was thinking a month ahead, 3 months ahead, 6 months ahead. He went and found a farmer who could sell him a small piece of land on land contract, and he paid that off over a couple of years. And then he got plans for his house, and you could see this gentleman just build and grow and blossom like this big oak tree. And that was 40 years ago. And right now he's standing on the other side of that door right behind me right now, still doing it. Only now he's on his third house. He's had multiple vehicles. Kids are all great. They're all giving him grandkids. His wife is wonderful. He travels. And it was just an amazing thing to see this guy go from, he was a huge guy. I mean, to see him go from low energy to, I can take on the world. It was a complete transformation of personality from low energy and depression to high energy and positivity. People don't even recognize him when they see him years later. All I can tell you is he is one of the first people that I ever coached, if you will. And we didn't even know what we were doing when we started this visualization technique. And now I'm doing it, 40 years later with hundreds of people. And, I owe a lot of it to him. He wants to thank me and give me credit for everything in his life. But I said, listen, pal, I had 3% to do with it. You did the other 97%. So, but yeah, it's a great story.
Hey guys, I love that story. We're going to provide Ken's information and links and all that stuff. Get the books, get the clubs together. He has courses on there as well. Take the courses, change your life, man. Allow him to show you another way, if you will. And I want to challenge all of you guys that are listening to us. Allow Ken to show you another way. You're looking at your life and you're not sure. He just told a wonderful story. I hope you were paying attention and give yourself a chance and see what happens, if you will. But come expecting something so that when you come expecting, usually it'll happen for you. Ken, I want to end with this question. You have a mic, and that mic, I think now we are about a little over 8 billion on this planet. And that mic is hooked up into all of us. You have an opportunity to speak to us, and it is clear and everyone can hear. What would you say?
I would just say this. I would say if everyone just sat down today and took out a piece of a poster board and a box of Crayola crayons, okay, and just started drawing. Just riff what you want your life to look like. It's not going to be the same for everybody. Not all of us are going to chase influencer careers or being a rap star or 15 cars and a yacht. And we all have that level of perfection, that nirvana that we dream about at night. Okay. What could it be? I only have 90 revolutions on this planet if I'm lucky. Okay.
Yeah.
So you are in control of that. You're in control of what your life is. You're in control of what your life will be. You're in control of what your life looks like if you just trust yourself to know what's best for you. So sit down, be quiet, quiet your mind, and just dream and colorize that dream, that wish and that hope, and then turn those things into time pathways. Your brain is wired to do this already. You already have the software downloaded. So just access the visual side of your brain. You will never look back. You'll be so happy that you did.
Absolutely. It's how we create. Again, Ken, thank you so much for coming to Threads of Enlightenment and allowing us access to you, man. We really do appreciate it for all the things that you have allowed us to receive from you. And all of you guys, again, we'll provide these links for you to have access to him. Buy the book, Blue Collar Cash, get it. Give it out as presents to people, get your club together, get to his sites, take his courses, become proactive, and change your life again. Thank you so much, man.
Thanks, Ken. Appreciate it.
Thanks for tuning in to Threads of Enlightenment with Ken Primus. Hopefully you're now feeling more empowered to overcome the challenges in your life, whatever they may be. Share that inspiration with others by telling them about this podcast, rating it, and of course, remember to subscribe so you don't miss a single episode. For more connection, you can find us on Facebook and Instagram by searching for Threads of Enlightenment. Until next time, stay enlightened.